All right, well, welcome to Chop It Up for this, the 20th of September in the year of our Lord and Savior, 2021, 2022. Dude, what am I doing today?
You got 21 on the brain right now.
I am. All right.
Bro, you almost messed me up because 21st is quote unquote the day before my colonoscopy. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Is that tomorrow? Yeah, nah. Just don't freak me out because I start this stuff tomorrow. So
have fun with that.
Fun? Is that the word we're using now? Is fun?
That's the sarcastic way of saying yeah.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to. Well, Jari Watkins, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, say a prayer for your brother because I very well may be singing on tomorrow that I've got a river of life flowing out of me, and it ain't the one that made the lame to walk and the blind to see. I'm just letting everybody know. So, say a prayer for a brother, please.
Yes, sir. All right. And I'm Kevin. I don't know if I mentioned that, but host of this podcast where we have conversations about everything we want to have a conversation about. And we do it completely off the top of the dome. No scripts, not planned out. We just have conversations. We know our topics. If you're noticing, if you've been around for a while here on Chop It Up, one of our partners in crime, yes, partners in crime. We ain't telling what all we've done. But one of our partners in crime, Darian, is out for this episode and probably the next episode or two, just handling business. And if you know us, handle business. Listen.
That's right.
We make sure you get stuff taken care of. So he is handling business, getting some things done on his end. So I'll put in for it on his behalf. As always, we're happy to be here.
Yes, we are.
All right. So a couple of things to talk about. And I'm gonna start here. I'm not gonna do the disrespect, but I am gonna say this. All right. The Queen passed away.
Yes, she did
last week, right? I think after our show, or somewhere around that time, right?
Yeah.
She passed away. Now we're talking about the Queen of England.
Yes, not Queen Latifah, not Mary J. Blige,
not Aretha coming back and then passing away again.
Right.
We're talking about the Queen of England.
That Queen Bee.
I just have a question, and I say this without disrespect, so I want to make sure I'm not being disrespectful, but I am wanting to say, what difference does that make to us as Americans?
I don't think it does.
Then explain why.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I already know what you're going to ask. Go ahead.
Because we've had like wall-to-wall coverage of everything that's happening over in England, whereas we had also a hurricane that just hit Puerto Rico not too long ago. And whether you realize it or not, Puerto Rico is part of the United States. It's a Commonwealth. It is a territory of the United States. So those are United States citizens. We spent more time discussing and looking at what's happening with the Queen of England's passing than we've looked at our own people having issues with a hurricane.
And that issue, not only are they just dealing with a hurricane, they had issues before when a previous hurricane came through, and they had funds that were raised to make sure that power doesn't go out. And they've had blackouts throughout the summer. And they said from a report that I heard on NPR, where it wasn't the question wasn't if the power is going to go out. The question is how many days will it be out? So supposedly the issue they had before was fixed by all this money that was put into this new infrastructure, and they're like, what happened? So yeah, there's a lot. But you know what, Kev, we talked about this back when we talked about the whole Meghan and Prince Harry, and you know how people are just so enthralled. I mean, same thing with Princess Diana when that wedding happened, and for some reason we as Americans have just decided to throw ourselves into these individual lives. I will say this though, if President Biden passed, other countries, I'm sure, would have wall-to-wall coverage of what happened, funeral, the successor, meaning Kamala Harris. I'm sure that there would have that covered, but probably not like we do. We just go over the top with everything. But I'm sure there would be a lot of coverage, but probably not 10 days past, you know, the
and I hear that, but I think that, and this is the barbershop, so we're gonna debate.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about it.
I think that the news coverage, I think we've talked about this, the news coverage here in the United States is much different than it is in other countries.
Altogether different. Yes.
There is so much more that is being talked about on news in other countries that we don't even touch.
No, we don't.
And so even with that parallel of President Biden, here's the other thing. She's a figurehead.
Right.
She really, the way I understand it, she doesn't have power.
No.
Right? So
Parliament has power. She doesn't have power.
Right. The prime minister has power.
Correct.
She's just the mannequin in the window of Great Britain.
Right.
And things were done in her name, but she had no power. Again,
and that's
the fact that she passed away. We're not dealing with that. I understand that she passed away. No one's, but I'm just curious as to what, because correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we fight to get free from the Britons?
Yeah, of course we did.
Wasn't that what the whole Revolutionary War was about?
I really hope so, because that's what we've been told.
But
so is it the case? Are you saying now that we as the United States, when it comes to the media, has that we're suffering from what is it? Is it Stockholm syndrome? What is it called? We fall in love with your captors. Which one is that?
Yep.
Did I say it right?
Stockholm syndrome. Yep.
So is that what we're saying, that we're so enthralled with our previous oppressors that we've fallen into that? I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, there's always been this stigma. There's always been this air. I remember, God, when I was like 10, when whatever year when Princess Diana and Prince, what was his name? Prince Charles. I mean, that thing was Chuck. That thing was blasted on every single station. And I don't know why it's always been this fascination with the throne and who's the heirs. And it's been that way, Kev, for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going back to when I was 10. And so
I agree.
That's 42 years ago. Hold on. Yeah, make sure you do my math right. Yeah, that's 42 years. So pretty much my whole life. I don't know. I'm not throwing shade at anybody that does.
Right.
And don't get me wrong. Some of the stuff
I'm just saying it's strange.
It's strange. Some of the stuff is interesting. It's makes for a good read. The whole Harry and Meghan thing, and then of course when Prince Diana died. I mean, I watched the coverage. Okay, what happened? Whose fault is it? Why were they chasing her? Who's really to blame? What did the Queen think about? I mean, there's things that, as a human, I would be concerned about. I don't want wall-to-wall coverage of it, though.
Right. With Princess Diana, there was the extra drama, if you will, of the circumstances of her death.
Yes.
Right. So that was
which we still have questions over.
Very much true. Right. But it was just, I'm noticing we have, granted, our news, because the news that we have now is different than the news you and I had growing up.
Yes, it is.
The news you had growing up, it was, you had 10 o'clock and then you had Ted Koppel at like 11 o'clock or whatever time it was. And
there was no wall-to-wall coverage. There was no,
right.
There was no internet. There's no CNN. We got it at 5, 6, and 10.
Yep.
And that was it.
And then you got the overnight at 11:30. Yep.
Oh, and I was in bed.
Yeah.
My little happy tail was in bed.
Now we had hours upon hours upon hours of analyzing this. Yes. And I'm like, there are other things that are happening that to Americans, I would think, would be more important.
Well, so here's the thing, man. We've talked about this countless times. Anybody listening to this, anybody that watches it later on, we can't be naive enough to think that when it comes to the media, that they don't have an agenda. We've talked about it many a time, and I've already talked about it, which is why I don't watch major news outlets, whether it's Republican, whether it's conservative, whether it's liberal. I try to stick to the middle of the road, and even now I'm questioning NPR because they're leaning to the left a little bit. Not that I'm not saying I don't support left or right, but I want my news middle of the road. And here's the thing, Kev. Who do I go to for most of my news information? BBC.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Mm-hmm. That's why, because they just give us the news.
What is that B standing for in BBC?
Is it the British Broadcasting Company? I think. Go. So we know that when it comes to media outlets and what we're given to digest, that they comb through it, that they pick and choose, which is why I loved that first season of The Newsroom. If anybody is likes a good TV show, drama, check it out, because they talk about that whole buying of media and propaganda and agendas, and they decided, you know what? We don't want to do that anymore. We report what we want to report, and we want to make sure it's right.
Yep.
That's the way it's supposed to be anyway. So yeah, the news are going to cover what they think we want to see, and not giving us things that are important. So
yeah. Because the thing that also slipped under the radar for a lot of people was the railroad strike that was
to
take place.
That almost happened.
That would have been major issues as far as supply chain, as far as food, as far as whatever.
Water. Right? We're not out of the woods yet, though. But
no,
it's been pushed off, and there's an agreement, but it hasn't been signed yet.
Exactly. So it's like, these are things that I think let's hear more about that, because we need to know if I need to go stock up on stuff.
Right. Or I need to go stock up on stuff to keep people away from my stuff. But that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole other thing. Yep.
But yeah, those, honestly, here's the thing, and I'll give Ashley credit for this one, because I like I said, I listened to certain things and like news flashes and news briefings and things that I did without turning on a TV. And there was a few days where I missed it, and Ashley said to me about the railroad, the possible railroad strike. And I'm like, wait, what? And so I went, read some articles on it, went to BBC and some other places, and I'm like, okay, well, that's crazy. We need to pay attention to that, because the economic ramifications of that happening are catastrophic. We cannot allow that to happen. I don't care who is in office. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care if it's the green tea, Sencha, spice chai tea coffee, party. It doesn't matter to me. At that point in time, a deal has to get done, and we have to make sure that those things are kept in place. So yeah, we need to know about this stuff. Unfortunately, that's not what gets clicks. That's not what gets ratings. The Queen gets ready. And that would have been some kind of all bad. Yes.
Because if we're already having supply chain issues that they keep saying, because I think I saw recently that Ford has like several cars that they can't deliver on time because they're out of parts. There's a chip shortage as far as cars. So there is a lot of things already happening with supply chain issues. So having something of that nature
for a while. Ever since it started, and we're seeing the effects now. And I think it's, as far as computers, we're on the tail end of that for that type of technology, but it's still there, and it's still keeping us from these companies from making money, which affects our economy.
Yeah. And then of course, when that happens, the price of everything goes up. And salaries don't go up. So it's a lot of things that it would just be very disastrous if people are not prepared and caught off guard. So,
speaking of prices,
go ahead.
I said, speaking of prices, I saw gas for $2.82 this weekend. 282. It was in Shreveport though, but still $2.82.
Okay.
I was surprised. I was like, what kind of voodoo is this? 282.
It might have been voodoo in Shreveport.
You know what? You're probably not wrong.
Might have been.
You're probably right. It could have been, yes.
Because we hanging around the upper threes right now, even at Sam's Club.
We're hanging around 330, something like that. And this was that 282 was at a Sam's Club. So yeah. But yeah, we're still hovering around 330, something like that around here in Oklahoma City. So yeah. I saw that. I was like, what?
And the other thing, I mean, and that's why again, I'm a proponent of, if you're a fan of the show, you've heard us say it before, get you a hustle, get you some extra income coming in some kind of way, especially in this economy as things are happening. You might need something.
You never know.
Just even if extra $100, $200 a month, figure out something.
It's better than nothing.
All right. So speaking of hustles, we both watched the movie. Listen, I will figure out a way to segue into stuff. So we watched the movie.
That was a great segue, by the way. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was a great segue. Yes.
Listen, hey, this is what we do here.
Yes, it is.
Watch the movie. So the movie came out 2 weeks ago now. I think it was
3 weeks ago,
maybe 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Called Honk for Jesus, starring Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall.
Regina Hall. Yep.
And when I first saw the trailer for it, our daughter showed it to us. She was like, hey, she sent it to us in a text or something. And we were like, okay. It didn't seem like anything to me. It was like, okay, it's another poke fun at the church movie. And using sources that I have, I watched the movie. So you know my sources too.
Oh yeah, I know your sources. And I don't think now we can call it a poke fun at the church movie by no means.
No, it was a jab. It was a straight uppercut. Yep. So watched the movie, originally watched it and was like, oh my goodness, this is bad. We stopped about 30, 45 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
And then for us, because we have our other channel that my wife and I do, we said we're going to talk about it because as pastors, I think that it was something that at least for those that saying their church hurt, those that are saying that they don't like the church, whatever, I thought it was good for us to at least address it and talk about it. So we watched it all the way through. And so what are your thoughts on it, Tori? I'll let you go first as far as kind of your thoughts regarding it.
So I guess I'll set the stage of what I thought it was going to be. Thought it was going to be a comedy making fun of the church. I love Sterling K. Brown. Regina Hall, the same way, much respect for the both of them and for what they've done. So I was really looking forward to a movie with both of them together. And knowing going in that it was going to poke, as you said, poke fun at the church. Little did I know that it wasn't a poke. It was a straight gut punch or throat punch or a karate chop to, the neck or a Spock hold on your shoulder. I mean, it was nothing like I thought it was going to be from a quote unquote, this is what we think church is. And, Key and I both watched it and she was incredibly hopeful. About 15 minutes in, I lost all hope. I'm just being honest, because I knew the direction that the movie was going into, and my first, and we talked about it either last week or week before last, and the same thought that you had, the same thought that Darian had was somebody was hurt. And I'm not saying that was what. I'm not saying the writer was hurt, and the writer may have gotten this idea from someone else, but clearly someone was hurt. Clearly someone was done wrong. Clearly someone wants to not only just shine light on the corruption that we know that does happen. And I'll say this, anybody that hasn't seen it or has seen it, I do not deny that what has happened, what they showed and depicted in that movie, I don't deny that it's happened. I know it has. I know of churches where these things go on. That's not the majority of them.
Right.
But there are cases where I'm Kevin's correct me if I'm wrong. Every single aspect of that movie that made our guts turn or made us cringe, we know of examples of those things happening in a church somewhere, whether they're white, black, Asian, doesn't matter. It's happened at many churches. And so I don't deny that. So, and the question that Key and I were always saying, what was their purpose? Yes, church hurt is 100% real, and we've got to do better. We have to do better. And the question was, what was the purpose? What was the person? I said, I truly believe that the purpose wasn't to enlighten. The purpose was to not necessarily expose, because anybody who's been hurt from a church knows this happened, but it felt spiteful. It felt like, oh, I want to cause pain. And that's what it felt like to me. I know other people may think differently, but to me, that's what it felt like. And here's the thing, that pain is justified. That pain, whatever the pain that, if what I'm saying is true, that pain that that person felt or is feeling or is continuing to feel, that pain is real, because things that were done were absolutely atrocious and wrong. I will never condemn any of that. And I'm not going to be naive enough to say that, oh, this doesn't happen in church. No, of course it does. I've seen it. I've heard of it. And that, I think for me, that not necessarily the saddest part, but the part of me that was like, oh, I'm not going to watch it again, but I'm like, we've got to do better, because this stuff happens. So what do we do from here? How can we use this as a platform to start discussing things with individuals? And how do we can't rectify the wrongdoings, but how can we keep this, how can we make sure this doesn't keep individuals away from church? That's the way I look at it now, because I can talk about it and say, okay, I get it. This stuff happens, but that's not the Jesus that we're referring to. He doesn't operate that way.
It was, I'll put it this way. It was the only difference between it and a documentary in some portions was that the documentary is based on an actual person and you know that person's name. This was kind of a hodgepodge documentary, because it covered a lot of different issues from a lot of different real life, real world examples. Right.
I mean, there was even instances of like Jim and Tammy Faye Baker. I mean, there were shades of that. And bro, that was from the 80s. Late 80s, early 90s. I mean, that was the last time they were in a ministry. There were shades of that in there also. So you're right, a hodgepodge of things that have happened across multiple ministries.
Now, did you notice? Because for us, the way when Tarsha and I were watching it, for us, it seemed like somewhere along the lines, it switched to almost being a conversation also about first ladies. And what they go through.
Yes, I do not disagree with that, because that was one of the first things that we noticed when watching that. Ooh, okay, you know what? It's going to be more than just him. Of course, it's both of them, but the things that first ladies do go through, which the whole first lady thing, that's a whole nother topic for me to begin with. But you know what I'm saying? It's but yeah, it's about that part of the story, not just what he has done, but her sticking with, and then that whole mindset of,
and then almost really losing herself,
literally,
and this persona in this facade that they have created for themselves, right?
And I think that one of the statements that that pointed that out was, why are you sitting out there? And she said, I need to know what it looks like, and I need to make sure you're right so I can get back on that stage. That was a deeper line than some people probably realize.
There was a lot in there that I was like, whew. Even and partially because my wife pastors with me. She is not a first lady in the typical sense of what we have called first ladies, because typically, especially in the Black church, a first lady is essentially, yes, the wife of the pastor, but she has minimal ministerial duties or responsibilities or activities that she engages in, except for, woman's care or what have you, right?
Planning, things of that nature, events and all that stuff. Yes.
And so even, I'll mess with Tarsha. She's like, I am not a first lady.
Boy, keep playing if you want to.
She's like, So I make sure when we go out and we're in places and in environments, I introduce her as pastor. That's
because she is.
So yeah. And I, as her husband, I cover her to make sure that you don't disrespect her by putting something on her that's not on her.
That's correct.
So but yeah, it was from the Eddie Long type story to, like you said, Jim and Tammy Faye, to just even the competition that happens within churches.
Oh, dude, that was a whole nother topic, dude. That's a whole nother can of worms. I mean, dude, there was a lot in a lot. Yeah. It was blow after blow.
It was, and we were even saying, okay, so the younger couple is really just on the track to become Sterling K. Brown and Regina Hall.
Yes.
So it was, I'll say this, it was a multi-layered movie.
It was.
If you just went looking at the surface, you would have gotten just the surface. But if you really just paid attention, it was multi-layered.
It was.
Do I still think it was poorly done? Yes. I mean, to me, it was just, and it's hard to say it was over the top, but it was over the top.
It was.
If we're honest, some of the things we've seen in church are over the top.
Yeah, the whole baptism thing, doing the retakes, and then the little girl, I love theater or whatever it was that she said in that. Yeah, dude, it was so much, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, no, trust me.
Oh yeah,
we can just debate that from the standpoint of Deborah, who was a judge over the entire nation of Israel.
Yeah, no, Jay, I'll say this: I by no means support the thought process that women should not be in the pulpit and minister.
Absolutely,
I do not support that at all. I am a proponent of that happening. And exactly, my dude, my mom and dad, they both have their doctorate in ministry, and my mom, she can get up there and divide the word correctly with the best of them. And I've sat under many women that have ministered, been in the pulpit, and even over the years, or Roberts and the people that have come through. So yeah, you're correct, Jay. That
my pastors growing up, the church that I got saved in, the church that I grew up in, was led by two women that decided to come together and co-pastor the church.
Yeah.
So for me, that was just the norm. To have this conversation in 2022, without, and again, that's without rightly dividing God's word, because this issue of women can't be in ministry is debunked in several places throughout Scripture.
Yes, it
is. To use those, because we can go down this path. The scripture that where Paul is talking about and says, "I would not suffer a woman." He's speaking to a specific church that had specific issues, that had a specific thing that was happening at that church. Because Paul also says, your daughters will prophesy. Paul also says other things about women in ministry. And in fact, there is, listen, we're about to go there. There is the apostle Junia in the scriptures as well. And that woman, the Bible says that Junia was chief among the apostles. I don't want to paraphrase it or take it out of context, but she was basically chief among the apostles, right? She was well liked among the apostles.
Right.
That was a woman, because Junia is a female name.
Yes.
So let's
Kev,
this whole thing of
you already
women
know
not being in leadership in church.
We've talked about this already. You already know that certain denominations take certain scriptures out of context and use them to prove a point or to set a doctrine. Just like you mentioned with Paul, and is saying that women should not speak. He was talking to that particular church about their particular people, when things were happening during service
Mhm.
when it wasn't supposed to. It didn't mean that they're not supposed to be up in church preaching or delivering the word or saving souls. It didn't mean that. There was a church that had a specific issue with what was going on within that body.
Yep.
Because he wrote that letter to them specifically. He wasn't talking to all the churches. So yes, and you're right, Jay. Context is key. And
if we want to take it even a step further, the first gospel message was preached by two women who left the tomb on Easter Sunday morning.
Tell it.
They
go and tell.
The gospel message is that Jesus Christ is risen.
Yes,
if that's the gospel message. The very first gospel message that was preached by women.
But we don't want to talk about that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
we only speak the truth, people.
Yeah, listen, Jay. Bro, listen.
Run it, bro. Let me get my Hammond B3 out real quick for you. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Listen. You already know.
I have no problem. Listen, Tarsha has taken an entire month of teaching. In fact, she's getting ready to teach on purpose for the next 12 weeks on our Wednesday night. So,
right.
And in fact, listen, when I was looking, one of the things when I was looking for my wife, because I knew I was called to ministry and I wanted someone, I didn't want someone that was just going to be cute and sit over on the piano and do nothing else. I wanted someone that would be alongside with me.
His wife is not cute. That's not what he
said.
said.
Oh, no, she's fine. Listen, my wife is fine.
Let's just get that out there, Kev. I don't want anybody thinking anything different.
Listen, I wanted her to be cute and have some other things going for her. Let me put it like that.
That's what I'm talking about.
My wife is fine.
Listen. There we go. That's it.
But she, I remember when we were in school, because when we were at Rhema, one of the things we would do periodically is they would do preach in a minute, or even the preaching lab. And I had permission to come into her because she was in a different group than I was in.
Mm-hmm.
I had the permission to come in and sit in when she did her preaching lab. Right. And listen, I was like, okay, yeah, she's getting somebody saved up in here.
Right.
So
yeah,
we don't play that.
No, we don't play it at all.
I have no issues with women in ministry.
There we go, Jay.
Yes, sir.
Hey, that bloodline is true. People don't think about it, but there are calls that are passed through family lines. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that. Not saying that it has to be in your line to be called. I'm not saying that, but that I've seen it. I've seen it in my family. I've seen it in many other families, and so yeah, that bloodline thing is true. It's true to form. But Kev, yours. I mean, yeah, it's there. So yeah, that's a real thing.
So yeah, so you said the anointing, yes.
Well,
listen. So yeah, I mean, so for me, when watching that movie, it was again interesting to watch. It was definitely full of a person's. It was not someone from outside the culture pointing fun. It was from somebody who has been in church culture.
Yes, it was from within for sure.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't like.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say it isn't like they got Michael Bay or somebody to just direct something and gave him a script. No, this was somebody who was in the church, knew the nuances of church culture, and said, I'm going to. It was almost like they tried to do an expose.
Right, exactly. Which is what exposés are supposed to do. They're supposed to expose. Yeah. And even to the point to where Regina Hall's character, the first lady, met the former congregant in the mall, and that whole discussion and banter back and forth. And because I paused it, and Key and I were sitting there, I'm like, what is that former congregant supposed to do? Are they just supposed to wait around for months and months and months and months until the church opens up, or are they supposed to go and find a new home? And it was to the point to where that she was the enemy, instead of being happy that she found another home. It's how could you turn against this mentality? And it was how dare you? And right now you've betrayed me, and how could you betray us? When what are you expecting someone to do? Now, people leave for many different reasons,
Mm-hmm.
They didn't leave. They couldn't go any longer.
Right.
The church was closed.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you expect to do, or we expect them to do if you're truly in the ministry? What do you expect them to do? And Kev, you and I, and if Darian was here, we've seen it way too many times, and we've talked about it before. The poaching of members, leaving one church, going to another, fighting for those congregants. I've told people many times, hey, if I ask you to come to church, it's not because I'm trying to get you. You say you don't have a place, let's go. If you have a place, by all means, stay where you are.
Stay where you are.
We're not in the business of moving, people from one church to another to quote unquote steal members. That is not the way it's supposed to be. But it also, they depicted that also in this movie, and it was so many things, as you said, Kev, so many layers that it tapped on, and it, because there were so many layers, it felt disjointed. There really wasn't a flow to it whatsoever. It was a hard watch. I can tell anybody it was a hard and painful watch, not just from the material, but just because there was so much and trying to hit so many things within a certain amount of time that it was disjointed. There was no flow to it whatsoever at all.
It was over the top in being over the top. If that makes sense. No. It was gut punch after gut punch after gut punch of here's this, here's that, here's that. So the story became, like you said, disjointed because you have all of these things that, yes, they happen, but you're throwing in things that happen across, let's say, 60 churches.
Yes.
But you're putting it into one church.
Yes.
Right. So now I did laugh, and Kia brings up a good point as far as the acting. It was some great acting.
They slayed it. Regina Hall, Sterling K. Brown, and even everybody. They slayed it as far as acting and them doing their job as a performer. They slayed it. I mean, giving credit to them, and I don't want anybody to think that we're bashing them as actors at all. No, because this is their job. No, by no means are we doing that. But yeah, they slayed it as we thought that they would. It's just that it was just a hard watch based on the content.
Right. I think one of the things I did like was the rap scene in the car with Nuck If You Buck. I was like, okay.
I'm not gonna lie, we laughed at that. Some people are like, you laughed at that? I'm sorry, we laughed at that. Yeah, it was funny. I mean, just I'm gonna leave it at that. We no, I'm not gonna say that. Never mind. You know what? I don't care. It's the barbershop. It's a virtual barbershop. Hey, there's been many times with things happening in this country over the past 5-10 years. There's been many times me leaving work decided to play a couple of choice songs in my car on the way from work.
Fight the power.
Just because I was
fight the powers that be.
No Vaseline. Hey, there's been a whole. I'm just letting you know. I had to get some stuff out. I had to release, and so I'm not saying that hadn't been me in my car one day before. I still love Jesus. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But
I'll say there's sometimes when I'm in the gym, and as much as I love Lecrae, as much as I love KB, as much as I love some of these other cats.
Yes,
I have a mixtape that is specifically for when I don't feel that motivated, and B, I need to go hard in the gym.
Yes.
So, and yes, No Vaseline is one of those tracks that's on there.
Still one of the hardest diss tracks out there, bro. I don't think anybody's going to get close
Absolutely.
to that. Hands down. And that's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother conversation. That right there is hands down the best one.
I used to, we'll have to have that conversation.
We have a debate about it.
Because there's who is it? Exhibit going off on Jermaine Dupri. There's that one where he says short people ain't got no reason to live.
I forgot about that one.
There's some crazy diss rap battles that are just
about that one.
Yeah. I mean,
but he went all gas, no brakes though, and No Vaseline, bro.
Oh yeah, it was from beginning to end.
First, all gas, no brakes the whole time. Yeah.
So that will probably we'll have to wait for Darian to come back for that one, because we definitely need to have that.
We may need some special guests on that one too. We need
we'll get them together.
For sure.
So we got that going on. I'm trying to think what else has been going on this week that has just been interesting.
You know what, your people, Kev, are just disrespectful though. We made a video of I Shall Wear a Crown.
Oh yes,
to the backdrop of the Queen ceremony. I'm like,
that's the other thing. Yes, with the Queen,
I'm like, I want to laugh so bad, but that is so disrespectful.
Well, here's the thing. That was the other thing, and I forgot to talk about that when we were talking about the Queen.
Right.
The fact that Black Twitter and Irish Twitter had a field day.
The Irish Twitter? I didn't see this.
I didn't know there was Irish Twitter, but Irish Twitter was like, oh, we got something to say now. Irish don't necessarily like the Queen.
Oh, no, not even close.
So they had some stuff to say.
You didn't share it?
It was as I was scrolling through, there was some stuff. It was like just some of the memes. I'll see if I can find them. Some of the memes of Black Twitter ain't rocking with it, Irish Twitter ain't rocking with it, but we rock together on this one.
Wow.
It was wow. And now there's calls also. That's the other thing. There's calls for the diamonds that were in the Queen's crown and in her staff or whatever, for them to go back to Africa where they were stolen from.
Ooh, you know that ain't gonna happen.
Oh, it's not gonna happen.
No, good well, it's not gonna happen. Yeah.
Because again, it would really require an in-depth conversation on the colonialism that existed even while she was alive, and that
it would be in the mission of guilt.
Oversaw.
It would be in the mission of guilt at that point, and they're not going to do that. Dude, their pride has pride. I mean, no, that's not going to happen. And there's also been talks of, well, will this finally end the reign of monarchy? Is this a time for change? Is this time for things to be different? You can say it all you want to. It's not going to happen. Did you see the lines of individuals waiting just to go see her? I don't know if they call it laying in state or not, but Kev, we're talking 24 hours. People waited 24 hours.
And it was cold. It's not summer there.
No, to be 30 yards away from where her body is laying. You can't even see her. 24 hours? Bro, I'm not staying in line 24 hours for nobody. Nobody. Bro. I don't even like standing in line at the grocery store. 24. Bro, don't get me.
Yeah, that's why I like Safeway here. Because our Safeway is trash.
Bro. For somebody I had no relation to, the longest I ever stood was when Bishop Timberlake passed. And the only reason I stood is because they hadn't opened the doors yet. We were just waiting. And that was probably 20 minutes? That was it. When Bishop passed. Because they hadn't opened the doors yet. I wanted to get in. Amy and we got in. But that was it. Nah, bro. But I knew him.
Right. There was a personal relationship.
I knew him personally.
You've had at least a conversation or two with him.
Oh,
right? You've had many conversations, right?
Too many to count.
Right.
Ever since I was in middle school. Private conversations. No,
that'd be like me standing in line for Joe Biden's granddaughter just to meet her.
I'm not doing that.
I could care less. I'm sorry.
I'm not doing that. No.
Respect. Now, again, respect. But that does not mean that I have to go and inconvenience myself to say hi and look at the body of somebody who I've only seen on TV and who I've never had impact with.
Right. And no disrespect. And I hope people understand that we're not poking fun at her death, because here's the thing. She's still a person. She's a human being. And it's funny that we talk about this today. And I was telling Kia that 2 years ago to this day, I made a post about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that as Christians, if we're supporting rallies or parties or whatever and protest, whatever you want to call it, that are supporting the glorification of the death of this individual, I said, you need to rethink your beliefs as a Christian then, because that is not what we do. I said, and I said it in the post, I said, first and foremost, I'm a Christian before I'm an American, before I'm a Republican, before I'm a Democrat, green tea, libertarian, before any of that. First and foremost, I'm a Christian.
Yep.
And we just have to be better. So by no means are we poking fun at, because she has a family. They loved her.
Yep.
And she was a mother, a grandmother, a great grandmother, maybe in some cases a great grandmother. I mean,
I completely understand family, friends, those that she worked with, those that she, I completely get that. I
completely get that.
I don't have an issue with that. I even get if you were part of part of Britain and you loved your queen. I just didn't, for me, I don't see, and this might just be my own, I'm not going to say character flaw, but this is just my own take on things. I have to, for me to come and pay respects, I can honor your passing.
Yes.
I can, mourn those people that I may have known, but may not have been really close to. Definitely.
Right.
But who I'm going to make that trip, do that length of time, and do all of those things for, it's not many people that I'm going to do that for. And that doesn't mean that I don't value life. It just means so.
Yes, I'm right there with you, brother. Right there with you.
So
no, don't apologize. Dude, why are you apologizing? You ain't sorry. You ain't sorry. We both know you ain't sorry. So why are you apologizing?
True. I'm just, it's one of those things I don't get. And so
right. Because I'm not sorry.
That.
I'm not sorry for that. No. So. We got to be better, people. We got to be better.
Yeah.
Got to be.
Yeah. So. Oh, and then have you been watching this whole thing as far as the governors flying immigrants
to Texas?
Well, from Texas to Florida, up to Martha's Vineyard, up to Delaware, up to outside of Kamala Harris's house.
Governor is it Governor DeSantis? No,
DeSantis.
Yeah, DeSantis. Yes. Because you know why, Kev? Elections.
Yeah.
I didn't call you, Alexa. Stop. No.
But here's the problem. Here's the thing that may be a problem. There's a sheriff in Texas who is investigating because they missed one, and there also was just a lawsuit that came from those people that he sent up there because they lied to them and told them that there's going to be jobs and housing and all of these things waiting for them. And these were not illegal immigrants that crossed the border illegally.
No, they weren't.
And were trying to hide from ICE or what have you.
Right.
These were people who were asylum seekers who are going through the process to gain citizenship. And now what the potential is that now they are could potentially miss appointments because they're in a completely different city and place than where they're supposed to be for their appointment. I mean, they even told people that they lived in, put on paperwork that some of these people lived in Seattle, Washington, and then sent them to Martha's Vineyard. And so now it's like, okay, but if I have a court date that's in Seattle, Washington, how am I going to make that if you sent me someplace else and falsified my address?
Right. I mean, it's we have to be better. We have to stop letting what side of the line that you fall on dictate your actions when it comes to other human beings and their lives and their livelihood. We've become so desensitized to that human element, to that human factor when it comes to political issues.
Yeah.
That's a problem for me. And I'm not talking about just one side. I'm talking about everybody.
All of them.
I'm talking about, I'm lumping everybody into that because that's a problem. That's an issue. And I have a problem with that when we don't think for ourselves. It goes back to the media thing.
Yep.
and we're just force fed this stuff, and we drink it like it's the next best flavor of Kool-Aid.
Mhm.
And we digest it and think it's the truth, and it's not. And when we see these the quote unquote immigrants that were supposed to be carrying these individuals, obviously I don't think any of them actually arrived. Am I correct, Kev? Or did some of them arrive in Delaware?
Delaware, they're supposed to be. Not yet, because that was kind of the threat. Now that, okay, now the next shipment, we're going to send them to Delaware. They've already hit, like I said,
Biden's home state.
Yes, then that's why they're doing that.
Right. Again, it's a political ploy.
It's political theater.
I mean, so yes, and so throwing that out there as a tactic because it's election time, I don't have the stomach for that. I mean, why make that threat? These are people's lives we're talking about. And then what happened is you have people in Delaware taking time off work, volunteers ready to meet this plane if that did happen, because they care about people that this happens to. And now those people are displaced, whether it's work or time or whatever, money that was spent because of that one quote unquote tactic. We're gonna ship them to Delaware also. It's a ripple effect, and it's frustrating, it's disgusting, and it gets on my nerves.
Yeah. And it's interesting that most of I won't say most, because that's hyperbole. So a number of people that are agreeing with this and saying yes, that should happen as far as sending them over, would be the same individuals that might be in many of your in some of your evangelical churches across the country.
Yeah.
And the place that they sent them to probably by and large may not be fit your evangelical, as far as like Martha's Vineyard, may not fit your evangelical stereotype. But it's interesting how they showed more Christ-like behavior in taking people in, making sure they got fed, making sure they had clothing, making sure they had the things that they needed, and then got them where we're talking Martha's Vineyard, which is an island. So it's not like it's the middle of DC. It's not the middle of Phoenix. It's not the middle of Chicago, right? So the resources that would be in a city are not going to be there. So because people are like, well, they shipped them out. Well, no, they got them to a place that could be helpful for them. But before they got them to that place, they made sure that they were taken care of as far as their immediate needs when they got off the plane, that you just goat herded them on.
Right.
So
we don't think about that.
No. So yeah, these elections are about to be very interesting.
I mean, ugly is a mild word, to be honest. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen. But here's the thing. We've said it before. It doesn't change who I serve.
Right.
It doesn't.
And it makes me wish he came back sooner.
Say it again.
Just makes me wish he'd come back sooner.
Rapture.
Like, hey.
Now this is rapture. Let's go. Let's go. Right.
Right now. Cool. Let's go. Let's do it.
Let's go. Right. Exactly. To make it happen. I already got my ticket. Got my stamp on my hand and ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, checked in, pre-boarding pass. Hey, bags are checked. Let's go. Yes.
Yeah. So,
but we'll see, man. We'll see what happens. There's going to be a lot of movement. There's a lot of things that are being held off until after elections, as far as bills and proposals and things of that nature. This is literally around the corner. I mean, we've got 6 weeks left until then.
Something like pretty much, because we got the rest of this month, all of October, and then 1st of November. Yep.
So about 6 weeks, I think. So we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I think that's it for today. We're going to cut it off here. We're at our time pretty much. And we'll see you all next week. Have a great one. Be blessed.